Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching or listening to this, and welcome to this week's episode of the Non-Identity podcast. Now, this week we're joined by someone who 4 years ago realised she was failing the American dream. So, with her husband, decided to pack up everything with her two children and go off travelling. Now she's here to help inspire people to overcome their adversity, which is our mind. It's Karen Yates. Hi, Karen. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Lee, thanks so much for having me.
Before we get into your story of why you decided to go traveling and stuff like, can you just explain to people who you are, and where you're from?
I grew up outside of Detroit, Michigan. Normal, everyday kind of life, really programmed as to what the path was. You go to school, you get good grades, you go to college, you get a good job, you get married, buy a house, have kids, work some more, and then eventually you retire. Excuse me, you retire and you hope you have enough money to actually live at that point. So that was my path for quite some time.
4 years ago, you decided to change your path. How did that come about, and what did you do about it?
My husband and I found ourselves at a really, really very low point in our marriage. The point where it's like, the wrong word will end the relationship. And we struggled with this. We went to marriage counseling and really found that to be unfulfilling. It wasn't meeting our needs. We weren't having the progress that we wanted. We weren't getting to where we wanted to be. And so we did the only thing that we knew how to do, that was talk to each other. And so through those painful, gut-wrenching discussions, we came to realize that, this life really wasn't working out for us. My husband had realized this a lot sooner than I had, but really it came to me that, this American dream that we'd been chasing, it really wasn't working for us. I'd lost my job 3 times over the course of 20 years, all of them through like site closures or downsizings. And every time that meant a new move to someplace else because I was working as a pharmaceutical chemist. So most places you live, there's not like another job right around the corner where you can go. You have to move. And so that meant 3 different moves. And every time you're picking up your, everybody thinks you make money on houses. Well, when you have to move, oftentimes you don't. And so that was our case. We weren't making money, we were losing money hand over fist. And it's like, man, this sucks. Our marriage is on the rocks. Our finances are terrible right now. And we don't spend any time with each other, let alone with our kids. And so we looked at each other and said, well, what can we do? And as a chemist, like I didn't have flexibility in my job. And it certainly wasn't something I could do remotely. Most chemistry labs, they like you to be in one spot so they can contain everything. Traveling with chemicals, yeah, that's not really something that most countries are okay with. So we started thinking like outside the box. So what could we do? And came up with the idea of traveling full time. And so, like I said, we're at this point though where like everything is kind of stacked up against us. We don't have the money. We don't have income coming in. Um, what are we going to do? And we want to do this. And so that's where it all kind of started, where it's like we started figuring out how to make these changes happen despite the circumstances that we found ourselves in.
When you go through that tough time, what made you two sort of stay together? Like, because a lot of people, once they hit the tough time, it's easy just for one person to walk away. What was that little bit of light that still managed to keep you guys sort of working at it?
Think it really boils down to, that love that we had for each other that, caused us to get married in the first place. It was still there. It was just buried under the sameness of every day, trotting the same path, following, doing the exact same thing. And that sameness just kind of buried that love down low, get down deep. And it was still there, but it wasn't on the surface. And it's like, you know what? If we want to have a life that's like interesting, that's fun, that's like enjoyable, like we want to do this together. We don't want to go our separate ways. And neither one of us really wanted to, be separated and have our kids, go bounce between houses and all of that. It wasn't what we wanted, but that love was still there. It was just, it was a little deep. We wasn't looking for it.
And when you say you went travelling, did you just literally pack everything up, jump in a camper and drive about, or was there a plan to where you wanted to go and what you wanted to do?
Great question, Lee. So my husband, he'd been doing a lot of research online, and he's like, you know what? There's conferences for literally everything. E- Everything you could imagine. You want to be a digital nomad, there's conferences for that. You want to be a sales executive, there's conferences for that. And he's like, he looked, he's like, you know what? Are there conferences for families that travel? And boom, right away, he finds this family adventure summit. Unfortunately, they no longer run this, but they had put together this incredible video for families that travel, whether it be through RV or international or however they do it. Let's have this summit. And that summit happened to be held in Bali. And it was about 9 months out from where we were right then. And we set that as our time frame. We're like, okay, we are going to be in Bali at that time. Come hook or crook, we're going to be there. We're going to make this happen. And so we looked at each other. We said, you know what? We could travel around the states. That'd be okay. Or we could do what like would be really incredible and just go around the world. And so that was what we started to do. We said, you know what? We basically sold, donated, got rid of everything in the house. We kept some of our clothes and that's what we kept, and everything else gone. We kept a small storage unit for sentimental things, but all the sheets, the towels, the dishes, the just divested ourselves of it. It was a little hard. I have to admit, it was a little hard to get rid of things like that, um, because it's what you're used to. But having done it now, I mean, we're very minimalist. We, can carry everything that we own now. It's really freeing actually to not have the stuff. You don't have to maintain things. You don't have to buy all this new stuff. You just have what you have, and it's actually very freeing.
And they say that like moving house or whatever is one of the most stressful things someone can do in their life. So obviously, with you traveling, you're doing that quite a lot. What makes it different to like if someone just needed to move areas with the lifestyle you're leading?
For us, like moving all the time, like we can push came to shove, if we had to pack everything, we could do it in 2 to 3 hours. And we can unpack in an hour. So it's, and if we really had to get out the door, we could probably go less than that. Normally we kind of do it over the course of a day, and other things are going on, so it's not really that stressful. And it changes things because we don't have nearly the amount of stuff that we did when we were living in a normal home.
So you had these plans to travel around the world and stuff, and then obviously COVID hit and the world sort of locked down. How did that affect what you'd planned? And was there a worrying time because you thought, well, we've given everything up really, and now the world stopped? So how are we going to get through this period?
That was definitely a pivotal period for us because we left in August of 2019, and we had planned to go to Bali for our conference, and then we were going to go to Thailand. And in Thailand, that was it. We said, okay, when we get to Thailand, we'll figure out where we want to go next. And so we were in Thailand and we had debated. We ended up going to Vietnam. And we went to Vietnam on a 3-month visa, arrived end of December of 2019. So our visa was up in March of 2020.
Yeah,
And that's when everything kind of hit the fan. Like
yeah,
countries are closing borders left and right. And we had about 12-hour notice that the next place we were going to go, which was Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, they were closing their borders at midnight. And we heard about 11 p.m. the night before from other traveling friends of ours. We're like, well, what do we do? Do we try to stay and renew our visa, or do we try to leave? We said, well, let's try to renew the visa. So we were able to renew our visa, and we ended up, as we call it, quote unquote, stuck in Vietnam for 18 months during the height of, all of
everything.
COVID. And it was
Yeah,
the most incredible experience. It was the best decision that we could have made. It was incredibly stressful. And that, 12 hours that we had where we're debating, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Because nobody knew, right? Nobody knew what was coming. Borders are closing. It's like, when are they going to open up? But we made the right decision and it was incredible. And if I had to do it all over again, I'd do exactly the same thing.
And where you've been travelling, what sort of countries surprised you the most?
I would say Vietnam really tops the list for surprising us. Being Americans, my husband and I had actually never wanted to go to Vietnam. My dad fought in the war, never talked about it. He actually went there, was stationed there, never, ever, ever talked about Vietnam. I knew he'd gone, but he never shared stories. And as Americans, we were like, man, they must hate us, right? I mean, we went over there, we bombed the heck out of their country. Like, this is not a good thing. But all these signs kept telling us, you gotta go to Vietnam. Like, it was crazy. Like, there was universe at work here directing us to Vietnam. So we prepared the kids for it. We watched a documentary with them so they knew what happened during the war. So they would understand if there was bad feelings here. And the truth was so, so very different. Like, people embraced us literally just because we were Americans. And we were shocked. We were literally shocked. And because we were there for 18 months, we got to know people pretty well. And we met lots of people in that time. And many of them spoke really good English. And so we asked them, why don't you hate Americans? Like, that would be like the most natural thing. And they all told us exactly the same two things. The first one was that was in the past and we look to the future. Wow, I heard that the first time, just about blew me away. That is not the mindset that I grew up with in the people around me. I was like, wow, if more people couldn't have that mindset, wow, where would we be in this world?
Exactly.
And then the second thing that they said is that was someone else's decision. That wasn't ours. And that to me was one of the most powerful lessons that I've learned from traveling. We've seen a lot of incredible things, been to, met so many amazing people, but that life lesson of how we look at the world around us, how we look at the people that are around us, it really hit me. And I was like, wow, we were meant to come here. We were meant to hear this from these people who, by all rights, I mean, they still find unexploded bombs there every single day, and they don't hate the people that drops them.
What sort of place that you've been to, which you're excited to go to, what was a bit more of a letdown than you expected?
Oh, hmm. I would have to say Colombia. All the travelers that we met were like, "Oh, you got to go to Colombia. It's the most incredible place." And it was a bit of a letdown for us. We found the people in general not to be as friendly, not to be as happy. When you look at their history, the drug cartels and the fighting and all of that, it's really understandable. But we were a bit let down and we're like, not really our favorite place to be. We prefer people that are generally friendlier, that will give you a smile on the street, not, look away from you as you're walking towards them. So that was probably the biggest letdown for us was that. And really, it's not because of the place itself, but the people. That's really what either draws us in or makes us say, not so much our place. We take our Google Maps and we put little pins on places that we hear of. People will tell us, oh, you got to go here. And we're like, okay, we'll stick a green little mark on it that want to go. And our map is pretty green, I have to say. We're excited though. This year we will go to Europe for the first time. So we're excited to hit Europe and see a lot of the old world, intermingled with the new, and just experience that, work our way through parts of Europe. Hopefully head down to Egypt. Definitely the pyramids are on our list. Turkey, Morocco. There's just so many places.
So, you said you believe that our mind could be our biggest adversary. Sorry, but you can change that to be one of our most powerful assets. What do you mean by that?
Sure, absolutely. So when we started traveling, I started sharing, well, before actually, when we were planning to, I started sharing our plans. And this was very, very instrumental. One of the women I worked with, she came up to me, we're talking, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, Karen, that's so amazing that you're going after your dream." And she proceeded to tell me of this dream that she and her husband have had for years and years. And she's like, "So hopefully in 5 years, when the house is paid off, then we'll be able to do this." And it made me so, so sad because I was like, you don't know what the next 5 years will bring. There is no guarantee that everything's going to line up perfectly, that, you're going to have your health, your husband's going to be healthy, that you'll have the money that you think you're going to have, that the world won't be shut down with a global pandemic. There's no guarantee. And I was like, wow, I have to do something about this. Like, people are inspired by my story. I have to share it. And along our travels, more came to me. And it's like, wow, this is really what I need to do. I need to share. So it's more than just about inspiring people, because I started thinking, I'm like, there's a lot of lessons that we learned the hard way in doing things. And what were those lessons? And I started realizing, that the mind is really so powerful in keeping us stuck right where we are because it's so comfortable. It's these habits that we fall into, and it's so easy to get up in the morning and eat the same breakfast and drive the same roads and go to the same workplace and come home and do all of the same things. And I look at my story and I'm like, you know what, we broke out of that in a pretty major way. So what did we do? And I identified 4 steps that really allowed us to do what we did. It follows the acronym STEP. So S stands for spark the opportunities within your brain. Really allow yourself to dream. And when I say dream, it's not just daydreaming. It's actually putting yourself in that place, whatever that is, whatever your dream is, putting yourself there as if it is in real reality and allowing those emotions. It's so important to connect with the emotions of it. What is it that you're seeking? Are you seeking adrenaline? Are you seeking calm and peace, adventure? What is it that you want? And then allow yourself to really feel those emotions, because those emotions connect really strong in our brain. I like to give the analogy, what's the last thing that you fought about with your spouse? A lot of times you don't remember the details. You might not even remember what that argument was about, but you do remember how you felt. Those emotions are strong triggers. So when you allow yourself to let yourself believe, that this has happened and you feel like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm doing this, or, oh, I feel so good that, this has finally happened. Then your mind knows that, okay, we can hop out of this habit route because there's something else on the horizon here that Karen or Lee or whoever you are, that you're planning this, and you can get out of that little channel of habits that your brain has naturally transitioned into. The second one for step is T, and that is take small actions. We didn't just, pack up everything, or, get rid of everything and pack up and leave the next day. This was a 9-month period. And in that 9 months, there were lots and lots of little actions, because that big action, that's really scary.
Yeah.
But those little actions, for me, it was taking a look at our finances. I'd been always like, okay, to my husband, you deal with that. I mean, like, as soon as we got engaged, I'm like, here's the checkbook. You deal with the money. I know it's sad, but that's what happens. That was my mindset. And I was like, oh, it's supposed to be the man's job to do that. And what am I doing here? So that was a hurt for me. In reality, it's a little step, right? You open up the computer and you pull up the account and you look at it. But it was a big little step for me. So it's taking those small actions. If you're trying to break a habit, it can be something as simple as doing something different than your normal routine. You come home from work and you always make dinner and then you sit on the couch and you watch Netflix. Well, go for a walk or take a drive to the park, or do something different. And just getting out of those routine habits allows you to explore even more. But it's important that you start with something small. Like, if you say, okay, I'm going to get rid of everything and just hop on a plane. It's probably not going to happen because most people don't have the ability to just snap and do that. So the third one in step is E, and this one is a really a hidden gem here. It's evade the herd of negativity. So we found that the people that were many of the people that were closest to us, our family, our friends, our coworkers, they weren't terribly supportive of our decision to do this. In fact, many of them still look at us and say, "You're crazy," and that's okay. What gave us success was actually we didn't tell people until we were committed and ready to leave, so they weren't going to sway us. But if people are sharing their plans for change with the people around them, which is natural, right? It's a natural thing to do. Many times they're going to get negative responses because those people, they've been programmed genetically. I mean, this is genetic programming here that's been passed down, evolution. Yeah, we're not cavemen anymore, but the programming from cavemen is still up here in our
Yeah,
brains. And
yeah,
so they've been programmed to want everything to be the same and want safety. And when you do something different, that is felt as threatening their safety, their norm. And so the biggest trick for us was we didn't tell people till after we left. But then the next thing, when we started realizing that, these people weren't really supportive of us, that they weren't wanting to talk to us about our travels. And we're like, oh my gosh, we're in love with our life now. We're finally excited about life, and you don't want to hear about this. It was painful. I mean, tears. Thankfully, we had each other to support each other. But many people don't have that. So the other thing that you can do is to find that tribe or find that person who really offers that support. It's so, so important that you have that shoulder to lean on, that you have that somebody to cry with when something isn't good. Because, everything isn't positive and awesome every single day as you're going through change. It's difficult. And those people that are, hitting you with negativity, that can be incredibly, incredibly hard. And so having that person who understands what it is you want to do, maybe they're already there, maybe they've gone through this, maybe they're going through it with you. If whatever it is, you have to find that support person because that's so, so important in order to overcome the people that are closest to you, trying to keep you stuck right where you are because that's comfortable for them. The fourth one is P, and that is practice making everything, and I do mean everything, positive. This one can be difficult when you first started because our brains are they're actually naturally designed to identify problems, not to find solutions. And so when you start with something new, they're like, oh, wait a second, Karen, you don't have the money to go travel. Um, you don't have the job that will give you income to travel. Your kids are in public school. What are you thinking? This is the brain identifying
yeah,
problems, right? All the things that are keeping you right where you are. All right, so when you start to make things positive, now you're turning your brain actually into seeking those solutions. And literally, you can make anything positive. It's difficult right in the moment, but looking back, you can find positives. Just an example, I lost the hearing in my left ear. I was 35 years old. It was random. I got an inner ear virus. And a very, very rare side effect of inner ear viruses is hearing loss. Well, I
yeah.
lost 90% of my hearing in my left
Oh,
ear.
wow.
Who can make that positive? Well, I'll be very real. When it happened, it was heartbreaking. I mean, here I
Oh,
had really good hearing. I'm happy with that. And now I suddenly can't hear out of my left ear and it's ringing all the time. And no, it's not. But you go through it, you get through it. And then now I can tell you positive about it. We travel. Sometimes it's noisy and I want to go to sleep. So what do? I roll over on my good ear, put that ear into the pillow. The other ear hears nothing, and I'm out like a light. The rest of my family, they're like, oh my gosh, it's so noisy. And I'm like, I slept like a baby. So you can literally make everything positive. You can find the positive in it. You can teach yourself to actually do that. And it opens up so many opportunities that you don't normally see because your brain is identifying, oh, you can't do that because of this, and this. You know, the dozens of reasons that you can't do something. But when you start looking at the positives, it's like, oh, wait, all right. I don't have any money. What can I do about that? And your brain goes to work, and your brain is so incredibly powerful that it can identify those solutions even if you have no idea how it's going to happen. Your brain will go to work and it will figure it out. But if you just, cross it off the list, oh nope, I don't have money, I can't do that, then you're done.
Well, that 4 steps sounds really good. Just what advice would you give to people that sort of stuck in the rut and want to try and move forward? Because in a way, you had a situation that change was needed, or everything would have gone wrong. Where sometimes people may feel like, as you saying about being in their comfort zone, that actually things are okay.
Sure, absolutely. I'd say, look inside of yourself. If you are feeling any kind of dissatisfaction or you're let down, that, this wasn't what I had imagined, whether it be, your marriage, you can make changes in your marriage that will absolutely change your life. Maybe it's your working environment. Maybe it's, life in general. I mean, I look at us and it's like, well, it's kind of life in general. Like we were just not happy with the grind of constantly trying to earn more and get more and earn more and all of this. And it's like, this wasn't working. And so if you're not in this place that's really bad for you, let's say look inside. Is there something that you really aren't happy about? And you can identify that and you can say, okay, you know what? This is something I want to change. And maybe sitting here right now, you don't know what that change looks like, but you have to realize you have to go through that process there. Start with letting your brain really imagine, okay, what would it be like if my relationship with my spouse was better? Or if I had a better working environment, or, whatever it is that you want to change. And once you start that spark, then you can start things really moving forward and getting you to a place that you may very well not be able to fully imagine right here, but you can start with those emotions that will allow you to really progress.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. If people have got more questions about this, are they able to reach out to you? And if so, where can they find you?
Absolutely. I'm on both Facebook and LinkedIn as well. You can find me on my website, which is inspiremydreams.com. All one word there, Inspire My Dreams. There's a great resource in there. I invite people to share their dreams. It's a simple thing. You're putting it into words, you're putting it out there for the universe, and you're taking that first little step of putting it out there that this is something that you're dreaming of, that you'd like to happen in your life. Um, After doing that, you can actually opt in to receive my dreams inspirations. These are just frequent reminders of how you can break free of the norm that you're currently in to really embrace that change and really get yourself towards that dream goal that you've identified.
And what we'll do, we'll make sure the links are in the description so people can get to you quicker. Well, we're nearly coming to the end, and thank you. This has been a fascinating conversation. But I've got one last question, and this question I ask every guest. Now, your answer does not change your life's journey so far, but if you had 30 seconds with your 13-year-old self, what would you say?
Oh, 30 seconds on it. 13, have confidence in yourself. Um, wow, I really had an issue with that. Know that things are going to be a little rough in your teen years, and you'll get through that. And just hold on to that inner confidence and move forward. Always move forward.
Well, Karen, thank you so much for your time. It's been brilliant. I'd love to invite you back on in like 6 months' time to see where you're at and how far along your journey you've got to.
Well, thank you, Lee, for having me. I really enjoyed it, and I hope your guest or your audience finds value, in these steps. And like I said, there's free resources there on Inspire My Dreams. Happy to share that. It really is my mission to inspire people to go after those dreams, to not wait for that someday, hopefully, maybe time frame, because that really never comes.